So again, these bars around the number are trying to find out what's the magnitude or what's the absolute value of a number, and it's trying to find out how far away from 0 it is. And so when you just have a number inside, it's really easy to figure out. Absolute value of 4.2, any positive number is going to stay exactly the same. Any negative number is going to become positive. So negative 3/4 will become positive 3/4, and finally absolute value of negative 1/2 will just be positive 1/2. So now when we want to order these ones from part A from least to greatest, you have to think, well, they're all going to be positive numbers. Show the solution on a number line. I'm going to put 0 down here because they're all positive. Our highest number is just over 6. So our biggest number right here would be the absolute value of negative 6.1, because that's equal to 6.1. 4.2, the absolute value of 4.2 would be right there. 3/4, or the absolute value of negative 3/4 would be right there. And the absolute value of negative 1/2 would be the smallest one. So the least would be negative 1/2, then negative 3/4, then 4.2, then negative 6.1 inside those absolute value bars. So it's relatively straightforward. Questions you can do are 3, 4, 7, and 9. Now, one of the applications of the absolute value is you can find the distance between any 2 points with your absolute values. But a lot of these things you can also figure out using math that you've done before. What's the distance between 3 and negative 4? Just looking at it. 7. Good. Didn't need to use absolute values for that at all, right? How do you find the distance between two? If you had two positive numbers, and I'll make it a little bit harder, if you had to figure out the distance between 77 and 132, what would you do? You'd subtract, right? You would subtract the 2, and you go 132 minus 77, or whatever numbers I said, and the difference would be the distance between them. You can do the same thing here. If I subtract, I'll get 3 minus a negative 4, and minus a negative is the same as adding, which would be 3 plus 4, and you would get 7. Now, the distance between negative 4 and 3 should be the same as the distance between 3 and negative 4. It shouldn't matter which way I say it, the distance would be the same. And that's where the absolute value comes in. Because if you didn't know which was the bigger one, I mean, it's obvious that 3 is bigger than negative 4, but if you just wanted to do it quickly and you did it the opposite way, if you did negative 4 minus 3, you would get negative 7. But we still know that the distance between them is positive 7. So had we put absolute value bars around it, then this would be absolute value bar of 7, which would equal 7. So that's a little application that any way that you write it, if you put absolute value bars around it, you'll get positive 7 no matter what. Even though for a question like this, it's going to be straightforward that you could figure it out anyways. But if you didn't know which one was bigger, the nice thing is that it's always going to be the same. If you subtracted one from the other and you put it in absolute value bars, one way you'll get a positive number, the other way you would get a negative number, but those absolute value bars would make them both positive in the end and would make them the same.